3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, I welcome you to Indigenous Hands, the Indigenous Voices that is brought to you by Save the Deaf and Endangered Languages Initiative. I'm so glad to be here again today to discuss the Indigenous Sign Languages of African deaf communities. And just like we've been doing for the past 2 weeks, I'm going to continue to talk about the Aisha's story. So we are going to look at another aspect of Aisha's story again today. I know you may have been finding this series exciting. All I'm asking from you is to please send a comment, send your questions. We are dealing with an Indigenous sign language, and I'm not a fluent signer of the sign language, and we do not have many of the signers around to help us with some of the questions we might ask, but I know I can do my best in answering your questions. Okay, I wanted to let us know that in my analysis of Aisha's narrative, I am looking at the hand shapes, and I'm also looking at the other parameters. But today I'm still going to be talking about the hand shapes in the segments that we will be discussing. And in my discussion of the hand shapes, so I'm going to be using both the conventional parameter and also the indigenous parameter in describing or in discussing the Aisha's narrative. That is to say that I'm going to be combining the conventional and the indigenous method of analysis in talking about Aisha's hand shape. All right, so today we will be looking at the third and the fourth segment of Aisha's story, where she told us what happened when she fell. Remember that last week we stopped at when she fell after climbing a wide plane. So she fell, and what happened next? So we're going to be looking at Aisha's video to look at what happened next. Okay, from the video, we can deduce the following as paraphrased by me. As I fell, lost consciousness, eyes unresponsive. Mother took me to the hospital. I was not conscious for 7 days, or for 7 days I was unconscious. Could not see, could not hear. They did all they could at the hospital. Nothing. Eyes opened after all. Ears blocked. Chest pain, headache. I was taken to herbalist. Mixture of herbs. I was given to drink. Ear opened, water dripping, could not walk, could only crawl, gradually walked, but then could not hear. And that is the end of my story. So this is my paraphrase of Aisha's narrative. And in this segment, since we are also looking at the handshapes, we can elicit a lot of handshapes from Aisha's story. And last week we looked at two major handshapes, the open and the close. And in the last week analysis, we saw a lot of open handshapes that were used and a few of the closed handshapes, and other handshapes we didn't really classify. But today it is interesting to observe a lot of different handshapes that Aisha's story contains. And I'm so excited to see all these handshapes being used. All right, so let us begin from after when Aisha fell. The next thing that happened was, according to her story, the eyes could not respond. The eyes were not awake. Conventionally, this is a sign for awake, and Aisha used it with the other aspects of her facial expression to say that eyes were not responsive. But that is not the end of that segment. With a combination of the sign for no, we're going to be coming to the non-manual signs. Eyes, no response. And this, of course, is a segment of the sign that suggests to us that she lost consciousness. And that's what Aisha is trying to let us know. But something is exciting in this segment of her story. She signed this for no, and again repeated with one hand, I, no response. But rather than using this for no at this time, she signed this. And this is more gestural than this. But I wonder why she used this with two hands and this with one hand. So this sign is no, and this sign is also for no. So eyes, no response. I, no response. All right, so the combination of the two segments made us to understand that Aisha was unconscious when she fell. The next segment of her story led us to when her mother or parents took her to the hospital. And we are able to elicit a few handshakes from this segment. One, the sign for mother, she signed here. And that made me a little bit curious, because when we were collecting this sign language, the sign for mother is here, and is about 3 movements to sign mother. Here, there, and here is under the breast, as opposed to the father, which is not signed under the breast. For mother, mother, and that's the sign for mother. But in her story, Aisha chose to sign mother here, and she said, mother took me, carried me, carried. So there is open hand showing carry. And this sign is related to the sign that we saw one of the presenters presented in her conference paper in the recent conference of Indigenous Signs and Voices of African Identity. And it is interesting that she was talking about the verbal signs, and she talked about the sign for carry. It's like this: the 2 palms open. But for Aisha's story, there is these 2 palms open facing up, and there is a movement from one position to another. And where did it end? In the hospital. Hospital. Aisha signed hospital with a conventional handshake for you and here, which is also not too far away from the conventional sign for hospital or ASL sign for hospital, like this or like this. Hospital. All right, so they took her to the hospital, and for 7 days, she was not able to recover consciousness. And this is a sign for 7, which of course is made up of 5 and 2. 7. For 7 days, she was unconscious. Could not see, could not hear. She repeated the sign for eyes not responsive. She repeated it in this segment, and she used the conventional gestural sign for hearing, ear or hearing, no. And there is a combination of the head movement and the hand movement in this segment of her narrative. And so she goes ahead to tell us that in the hospital they did everything but nothing. And again, this is a conventional gestural sign for nothing or no success. Again, open handshakes, palm facing up. But after all, the eyes got open. Eyes got open. Even though the eyes got open, there was pain in the head, in the chest, which in other words suggests I was still terribly sick. And after that, I was taken from the hospital to the herbalist, where a lot of herbs given to me, given to drink, open hand to give, to drink. Let us go back to see some of the major handshakes that we saw in Aisha's story today. And we started today's story by looking at after the fall, there was a moment of unconsciousness whereby the eyes could not open. And she was taken to the hospital in 7 days. 7 days. So here we have the sign for eyes open but no. Mother carry from one position to the other. And where is the position? Hospital. 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 See, no. Could not see. Okay, in this story of Aisha today, we have looked at the third and fourth segment of her narrative, and we have looked at the handshakes, major handshakes that could be elicited from this story. And we saw that Aisha also used a lot of open handshakes and a mixture of other handshakes. I know that, again, we are stepping into a little bit of the technical aspect of the study that we've been doing here, and I know it's, you know, getting the more excited for me it is really to be able to analyze these sign segments from an original indigenous sign language. All right, so it's been fun here once again today. So this is still the Indigenous Hands, the Indigenous Voices, and I'm glad to be your host again today. Is gonna get the more exciting, I promise you. Keep on keeping on with us, keep on watching our videos and keep on liking them. Please drop your comment, as I would always say, and if you can, send us an email on info@sdeli.org. info@sdeli.org. Please stay safe, and I'm gonna see you again next week. Bye.